Revenge films.
My wife is, not to be mean or anything, but the perfect housewife. She's beautiful, knows how to cook and clean, and is always supporting me to the best. One day, I got a call from her during work. I knew she would never do such a thing, so I knew something bad had happened. I rushed to answer the phone and heard her panicking voice, as well as her brother yelling in the back. "Are you kidding me? You think crying will solve this?" And things I couldn't make out. I rushed to my boss to explain what had happened and asked to go back home. I quickly did and found my wife outside the house. And the inside was a horrible mess. I checked to see if my wife was okay and was glad to find out she was. I went inside and saw my brother-in-law yelling next to his girlfriend, who I knew, and my mother and sister sitting on the floor. I was shocked to see the situation, but was soon met with a punch from the girlfriend. Because I wasn't prepared, I hit the floor and started to bleed from my lips. Ow! I got up and noticed that my mother and sister's face were bruised as well. And once I knew it, I was sitting on the floor next to them, getting yelled at by my brother-in-law and his girlfriend. And from what they were saying, I learned that my mother and sister were abusing my wife. They would come to our house when I wasn't there, make her cook food, say it was horrible, and throw it out. She would even call my wife out to their house to do housework. Because my wife was perfect, she would be able to do what they asked, which annoyed them even more. And so they went on to borrow her clothes and accessories, to steal and even sell some things for money. They even told her to go buy 1-liter bottles of water for emergencies. The girlfriend saw her carrying a large box of water and called the brother-in-law to explain to him the situation. But my wife said nothing. They went back to the house where they saw my mother and sister eating snacks on the couch, doing nothing. They didn't notice who walked in, and my mother said, as per usual,
"Why can't you be much faster, you garbage? How about you message me then?"
The girlfriend suspected this was when she first saw my wife, but hearing this from my mother made her snap, and she drop-kicked my mother. My sister started to scream, and my brother-in-law began to punch them. And this was when my wife called me. I didn't notice any of this was happening, was daydreaming at work. I realized that my own family was abusing my wife, and so I started to cry and went to my wife to apologize to her. She then said,
"I'm sorry for not talking to you about this first."
and started to cry, so we softly hugged. Then the girlfriend said,
"I knew it. It wasn't his fault, but you, old lady."
and started to call someone. FYI, brother-in-law and his girlfriend were very famous gang members back when they were young. The reason she was able to drop-kick me and my mother was that. When they were young, they would go and talk to my wife about their lives, and it was because of my wife they were able to recourse their lives, get a steady job, and live like they are right now. And that was why they were so furious about my mother and sister abusing her. I agree with them on that. Brother-in-law asked me, "What are you planning to do with them?" And so I looked straight ahead and said, "They are not my family anymore. The only person I'll protect is my wife. I'll never see those two again. I'll let you two decide on what happens to them." "All right, I'll do what I want to them," he said back to me. Hearing this, mother and sister quickly said,
What are you talking about? We're your mother and sister. Do you have any idea what they are going to do to us?
"What are you talking about? How could you do this to such a perfect daughter-in-law? She's done everything you ask, and this is how you treat her?" My mother looked shocked from what I said. Then we heard the sound of cars and bikes all around us. My mother and sister looked shocked, and brother-in-law and his girlfriend called in their subordinates. My wife asked her brother in a very worried face.
What are you planning to do? I'm fine. You don't have to do anything.
We're normal citizens now. We can't do anything bad. We're just gonna drive them home, he said, and everyone and their sirens left the house. My wife was worried, but they were really just sent home. But their subordinates constantly called them bullies all the way home. I couldn't understand why my mother and sister would abuse my perfect wife like this. But later I learned from a different sibling that mother and sister didn't like how my wife was constantly liked by everyone anywhere she went. Especially my sister, who couldn't stand how much beautiful my wife was. And they teamed up to bully my wife. My wife was just trying to get along with them. I couldn't stand them, and I couldn't say anything that would cheer up my wife. Brother-in-law and his girlfriend just brought them home. Because their subordinates were so loud, everyone in the neighborhood came out to check what was happening. Then the subordinates told everyone in the neighborhood about what they had done in detail. My wife's perfection was very famous around the neighborhood, and I would get compliments everywhere I went in the neighborhood too. A neighbor was so furious she went to my mother and sister and said,
How could you do such horrible things to her? Why could you do that to such a wonderful girl?
They tried to talk back, but because they were surrounded by 20 gang members, they could not and simply bobbed their heads. After this, I decided we needed to move out of the neighborhood because I didn't want my wife to see them ever again. She looked worried and said,
I'm fine. You don't have to do this.
But this was to protect her and show that I cared for her. I talked to brother-in-law too and promised him I would protect her and keep her safe no matter what. They might run into each other in the streets, and because my wife was kind, she would keep it to herself again. So I made the decision to move out of the city with her. But my mother and sister's rumor spread all across the city. So when they walk outside, people would say,
Look, it's those bullies. They're the reason why the couple moved out. They're such horrible people.
These rumors pushed them into becoming shut-ins. Because she was made to go shopping for mother and sister, most of the shops knew my wife and what had happened. So they can't even go shopping now. As for us, we are living a happy life in a different city. It takes me much longer to commute, but the good luck today from my wife is enough to keep me going every day.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.